On Saturday, for the first time ever, the Texas Longhorns go on the road to Athens, Georgia to take on the Georgia Bulldogs between the hedge at Sanford Stadium. It's a 7:30 local kickoff. It is a huge, huge matchup for both of these teams, in my opinion. For Texas, of course, they already have two losses to Florida and to Ohio State at the beginning of the year. So if they lose this game, they are now sitting at three losses on the year. And of course, we saw what happened to 9-3 SEC teams last year. Of course, if you go out and you beat A&M at the end of the year, there's still a case to be made for the Texas Longhorns to get an at-large bid. But if you're Texas, you don't want to worry about that. You want to take care of business right now against Georgia, which would propel you to finish the season out really, really well. You're coming off of two huge wins against Mississippi State, which was a nail-biter overtime victory, and then you just walloped Vanderbilt for most of the game. Of course, Vanderbilt came back in the end, but Texas is looking much better. But they are going on the road against Georgia, who has been a juggernaut in the SEC ever since their loss to Alabama. Juggernaut maybe is a bit of a strong term because they've struggled in almost every game they've played. But against Mississippi State, it seemed like they've started to be clicking on all cylinders. So this game, in my opinion, is going to be just an absolute amazing high-level football team between two elite teams and elite coaching staffs. I'm so excited about it. Of course, last year, these two teams faced off twice, once in the regular season, once in the SEC championship game, and the Bulldogs had the Longhorns number in both of those matchups. Georgia sort of mauled Texas in Austin in their first meeting, and then it was an overtime victory for Georgia following a Carson Beck injury in the SEC championship game. But if you talk to these Texas players, and people have talked to these Texas players about last year's matchups playing a factor in this year's game, they answer the question like, what are you talking about? We played last year? No, we don't remember that. This is a different team. This is a different season. And this is a different game and a different matchup. And I completely believe that. So I've got a lot to talk about on this game. I got a lot of notes. So I'm going to break down unit by unit my opinion on Texas's offense and defense and Georgia's offense and defense and how they compare and where I think certain teams might have an advantage. So starting on Texas's defense. First of all, I think Texas has the best front seven in the SEC, maybe except for Oklahoma. Texas and Oklahoma's front sevens are both really, really elite. But Texas's front seven is awesome. They're first in the SEC in rushing yards allowed per game. Very few teams, pretty much no teams, have been able to find sustainable success running the ball against Texas. Why is that, you may ask? Well, they brought in a lot of really, really dominant defensive tackles that just they're really, really gap sound. They hold blocks. So I'm talking about the transfer from Ohio State, the transfer from Purdue. One of them's number 99, their nose tackle that sits in the middle. Good football player. I mean, they're big and they're physical up front. And also, Colin Simmons is just an absolute freak. I mean, he's a 6'4", 240-pound alien. He's crazy. I mean, not only is he like the twitchiest player in the world, and he can get after your quarterback like that on third and long, but he's also so flashy and aggressive in the run game. He's such a good run stopper. And good luck trying to put him in read options. That's what Vanderbilt tried to do. They tried to say, well, we can't block him. We can't run right at him. And if we try to run away from him, he's too fast. He's going to make plays. So we're just going to make him the read key and read him and not block him at all. And that did not work at all either. So Colin Simmons is a game wrecker. He's the best game wrecker in college football, maybe. In my opinion, I think the two best defensive players in college football are playing on this football field on Saturday. I think that's Colin Simmons for Texas and C.J. Allen for Georgia. I'm so excited to watch them square off against each other. Of course, they're not going to be on the field at the same time. But Colin Simmons is crazy good. Anthony Hill, crazy good linebacker, so talented. He's great in pass coverage. He's great in run support. They have this formation that Texas runs sometimes where they put their three big defensive tackles on the field and they blitz Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill off the edge. That is spooky. Like, whenever they run that formation, ooh, good luck. Good luck trying to get any yards on the ground. They're so tough. They're so physical. I love this Texas front seven. They've been elite all year long. But the problem for Texas's defense this year, the reason why they've been getting exposed in some of these games, has been their secondary. It's very young. It's very thin. And the depth is not at all what we thought it was going to be going into this season. I think especially at corner, they're very, very young. I think we saw a lot of that in the Florida game when Dallas Wilson just sort of cooked them over the top one-on-one that they could not guard Dallas Wilson one-on-one to save their lives in that game. And I think that's just, of course, they get Michael Taft back this week. That's big for them. He'll be their safety. And I think it'll help things out. But just in general, and this is especially going to be really important considering who they're playing this weekend, Texas's secondary, in my opinion, is not a good tackling unit at all. They really, really struggle tackling players out in space. That is something that has been a struggle for this Texas team all year. And they're going to be up against it with some of the weapons that we're going to talk about in a minute with the Georgia Bulldogs. But I think Texas, and they're a zone football team. They're definitely a zone coverage football team. And I like zone coverage football teams because what Texas does, they run a lot of single high safety, cover 3 looks. And with Michael Taft back healthy, they can slide him into the box and he can make plays. And basically what they're trying to do is saying, we're going to take away explosive plays over the top, and we're going to make you beat us on like 12, 13, 14 play drives down the field. And what that does, the more plays that Texas's defense is on the field, the more chances that Colin Simmons has to just wreak havoc. I mean, he can get sacks. I mean, literally these are drive killers. If Colin Simmons gets a sack, if he blows by a tackle and gets a hold, that's 2nd and 20. That's 1st and 20 drive killers. So that's what Texas's plan is to keep offenses on the field for as long as they can so Colin Simmons can win football games. That is literally their game plan, and it works for the most part. Texas' defense is good, and they travel. That's the thing. Texas' defense has traveled really well this year. So I'm looking. I think Texas defense is elite. That's my opinion on their unit. So when I look at Georgia's offense, what they're going to be going up against, the first thing that I think needs to be noted about Georgia is their ability to run the ball the last few games. It has been awesome. Georgia has been opening up so many creases in this run game, whether it's against Ole Miss, whether it's, of course, Mississippi State. They exploded last week against Florida. They were really good on the ground too. And honestly, I think the main reason for that, why their run game has taken such a big step up, is because of how great Oscar Delp, Lawson Lucky, and their new freshman tight end have been at run blocking. It has been a sight for sore eyes. They can block so well. I think Oscar Delp is the unsung hero of this Georgia offense, not because of what he can do in the pass catching unit, because Lord help him if he needs to run a route, but he is an awesome run blocker, and he opens up so much for this team, and he finishes plays. I think Oscar Delp is so good. So because of their success in the run game, that's given them stability, and it's given them an identity. And I look at a passing game for me, for Georgia. I love this passing game early in the year. I think the loss of Colby Young is huge because, yes, Zachariah Branch is awesome. He is so good at what he does. I'm going to talk about him in a second. But not having Colby Young, because as good as Zachariah Branch is, he's a slot wide receiver. Colby Young is your outside X wide receiver who you need to pay attention to, because there are some X receivers, you know, if you've coached or played football or even watched football before, if a team has a dominant X receiver that just needs to be bracketed, that needs to be given attention to at all times, that changes an offense. It gives an offense so much more juice. And I think Georgia had that with Colby Young. Now it's Noah Thomas's time to step up. And in my opinion, Noah Thomas has dropped passes this year. He's missed a lot of blocking assignments. I don't think Noah Thomas is as elite as Colby Young is in any stretch of the imagination. But I think that Zachariah Branch, I'll talk about Zachariah Branch now. Zachariah Branch is the best player in college football in making people miss in the open field. There is no one better than breaking tackles, than juking people out than Zachariah Branch. And we've seen this with Georgia. They are so good in the screen game with Zachariah Branch because he's so hard to tackle. And he's a weapon. And this is a Texas offense, or a Texas defense that I just talked about, that struggles in tackling guys in open space. And Georgia has the best player in the country, in my opinion, at breaking tackles in open space. So that's just a bad matchup. I think Zachariah Branch is going to have a field day out there. I think he's going to make people miss all over the field. I think he's going to be really, really fun to watch in this football game. And the fact that they have such a good screen bag, I guess I should say, the fact that their screen passes are so good, that opens up a lot of the stuff that Gunnar Stockton wants to do down the field. Because when you motion Zachariah Branch across and you throw him the ball 3 times and he gets 8 yards every time because he's literally a human joystick, then the next time you motion Branch across and fake it to him, safeties are going to crash down and you're going to have cover 2 shots easily. So look for Zachariah Branch to make a lot of plays and look for the offense to open up because of those plays. But I think the quintessential answer to Georgia's offense in this game is, can they run the ball against Texas? It's an awesome matchup. It's a stonewall defense. It's an immovable object that is Texas's defensive line in their front 7, and it is just an unstoppable force in Georgia's rushing attack. Something's got to give. So what'll it be? I think that could decide the game. Is, can Georgia run the ball against this awesome Texas front 7? In my opinion, I think it's going to be give or take. I think that Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill are going to make plays. They're going to get tackles for a loss. That's going to happen. But since Texas' secondary is very thin in terms of tackling and experience, I think Georgia could maybe break off a big run or two. So, but in my opinion, I don't have an objective answer for who's going to win that battle, but it's going to be fun to watch. But now flipping over to the other side, talking about Texas's offense versus Georgia's defense. Starting with Georgia's, I'll start with Texas's offense because I think they're more fun to talk about. You cannot start anything else talking about Texas offense than with number 16, because Arch Manning, the last 6 quarters, the second half against Mississippi State plus overtime, and then all of the Vanderbilt game, Arch Manning has been so good. He has been absolutely incredible. Of course, we all know he struggled to start the year. Everybody knows that. He comes into the year with all this hype, Heisman favorite, number 1 draft pick projected. All of this stuff is thrown on Arch Manning, and then he goes out against Ohio State, struggles. He struggles against his 3 high school opponents. And then in SEC play, loses to Florida. Not very good against Oklahoma. So you're telling yourself, Arch Manning, he's bummed. He's washed. He was overrated. He's not going to be as good as we thought he was. And people were kind of done with Arch Manning. But he has been just lighting the world on fire, in my opinion, the last couple games. And the reason to me that Arch Manning was struggling, yeah, he was missing throws. Yeah, he felt uncomfortable back there. But his offensive line was not providing him any protection. He had no time to throw in those first few games of the year. And frankly, his weapons were not stepping up yet. In my opinion, it took Texas skill position players to the Oklahoma game to finally step up and make a difference. Like, in my opinion, the reason that Texas moved the ball against Oklahoma was because of Trey Wisener. He was so good in that game. And Ryan Wingo, yeah, he's been great the last couple weeks, but that's just been a recent development. So when Arch Manning was first playing, when we were first getting our first look at him, he had a terrible offensive line that couldn't block for him, and he didn't have any reliable weapons. So what was the guy supposed to do? And I think the last few quarters, that hasn't changed. It's not like his offensive line has gotten completely reshaped and is now this dominant unit. It's not like he's gotten different skill position players that have broken out. He's just been so much better. I think his arm strength is so good. I think his arm talent is so good. I would buy all the Arch Manning stock right now because he looks awesome. And he's better outside the pocket than he is in the pocket. The biggest weapon for Texas's pass game is Arch Manning scrambling. It is. He seems more comfortable outside than he is inside. So I really like what Arch Manning is doing these days. I'm really, really proud of what I've seen from him. And as I mentioned before, this is a Texas offensive line that has been bad this year. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They've been really bad at pass protecting and at run blocking. And you might say to yourself, okay, so Texas offensive line is not playing very good. They can't protect their quarterback. Well, they're going up against Georgia. That's easy advantage for the Bulldogs, right? I mean, come on, it's the Georgia Bulldogs. This is Jalen Carter. This is Jordan Davis. This is Micah Williams. Of course they're going to get pressure on a weak offensive line. Well, guess which team in the SEC this year is dead last in sacks? It's not the Kentucky Wildcats. It's not the Auburn Tigers. It's the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia is last in the SEC in sacks. So this is a Texas offensive line that can't protect, but at the same time, this is a Georgia defensive line that can't create any pressure. So it's like bad on bad. I have no idea who's going to win this matchup, but it's just an interesting thing to look out for. A weak spot in this Texas offense that teams have taken advantage of all year. Georgia might not be able to take advantage of it because they haven't been able to get pressure on the quarterback recently. I think Kirby Smart really tries to recruit a lot of big power rusher, run stopper type defensive linemen, and they've been great. I mean, I'm not gonna shade Kirby Smart or anything. He's been awesome as a head coach for Georgia. We all know that. But he's really shied away from those twitchy speed rusher, pass rusher type players. And I think doing that has sort of it's not worked out for him. I mean, his pass rush is not as good this year. So that's just a thing to look out for. Another really interesting battle is going to be Texas's offensive line pass blocking against this Georgia pass rush, which has been pretty non-existent this year. But what I think Texas needs to do, or what I think Georgia needs to do to slow this Texas offense down, is to tackle. They have to tackle well because Texas lives in screens and flats. Because when you can't get any time in the pocket for your quarterback to throw downfield, that means you can't throw downfield. So you have to resort to throwing into the flats, short passes, short screens to Ryan Wingo, to Trey Wisner. And if Georgia takes those away by tackling well in the open space, Texas's offense is going to have nightmares. So can Georgia tackle and can Georgia pressure Arch Manning? If they can do both of those things, then I think they win this football game. On the other side, for Texas, can Arch Manning get outside the pocket and make plays? And I'm not going to lie, this is a Georgia secondary that on paper is really good, but I watched multiple times against Florida, multiple times against Mississippi State, a couple times against Alabama, where their zone drops, whether they're running cover 2 or cover 3 or whatever it is, sometimes their safeties get greedy and they step up and then they just get torched over the top. So, I mean, if Ryan Wingo motions, they run a lot of Ryan Wingo orbit motion. If safeties get greedy and step up, DeAndre Moore over the top could be there. So, if I'm being completely honest, I think this is the perfect moment for Arch Manning to step back into the spotlight. I think this is the perfect moment for him to take advantage of a weak pass rush and his weapons that are finally starting to step up and have his signature Manning moment on the road against Athens to save Texas this season. I think this is the perfect moment for him. So to me, the answers that I have about this game is, first of all, can Georgia run the ball against the stout Texas defensive line? And if they can do that, I think they control the game. And on the other side of the ball, Arch Manning, can you step up to the moment? You have everything, in my opinion, in your favor right now. You have your weapons are finally starting to shine. You're going to have time in the pocket, maybe. And you have a chance to continue your hot streak coming off a bye week to really emphasize that you are a dominant quarterback in this sport. Honestly, I've gone back and forth on this game all week. Usually I write out all I think about the game and then I circle the team I think is going to win. I literally have both teams circled right now on my notebook because I've really gone back and forth. But at the end of the day, I have to trust Gunnar Stockton to win this football game because I have loved the coaching job that Kirby Smart has done with this team so much. They're at home. It's a night game. And I think this team has rallied around Gunnar Stockton. I think Kirby Smart loves this team. I don't think it's as talented as Georgia teams in the past, but I think Kirby still loves it so much because they give their 110% every single game. So I'm taking Georgia, but my goodness, I think this game is going to be elite. I think it's going to be so much fun. I think there's going to be so much good football that is going to be played. There's going to be elite level plays made by elite level players who are coached up by elite level coaches. Could not be better. And honestly, if Texas loses a close game, let's say Texas loses 30-27 in this football game, and then Texas goes on the road and beats Texas A&M, I think they still have a compelling case. We'll see. Of course, I do my own in-house college football playoff rankings with my own system that is unbiased. It's literally just a number system. And right now I have Georgia at number 5 and Texas at number 13 based on just resume alone. So this would be a huge resume boosting win for Texas. It also would be for Georgia, but we'll see what happens. Huge, huge, huge game. I cannot reiterate that more. Huge game, and I think it's going to be awesome. But give me Georgia just by a hair. So go Dogs this week in Athens, Georgia at 7:30 p.m. against the Longhorns.